Good morning. Welcome to the Poetry Studio. There we go. Better angle for the camera. These lights are still too bright. And I gotta turn down my music a little bit. All the buttons. Welcome this morning to this Saturday. We had a day off yesterday. My schedule was not lining up is the nice way I will put that day yesterday. I not always able to be on top of that. So it's one of those things where it was a blip in the matrix. Perfectly fine with it, but I am back here today, ready to do some poetry. And today's poetry is pretty critical. We're getting back to some edits on some of these pretty well worked poems that I've been working on. Oh goodness, unable to connect to my lights. I'll also be obviously here to take requests. Good morning, Twitcher Alex. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate you being here. Man, what a week. Like, if this were Saturday to be a reflection on the week, I was actually reading a journal entry for Richard S. Young on Instagram, who does a challenge every day. He uploads a page from his journal and kind of talks about. He tries to keep accountability and productivity, and he yeah, no, I was just saying good morning and thank you for tuning in. Reflecting on the week. And he said that this week was even a little uneven for him, and he's pretty steady as a hammer when it comes to just getting stuff done and having his routines and everything like that. I feel like that this was a turbulent time for many people, but it's good to be here now at the end of that week, able to kind of reflect and just create and move forward with all that. So, yeah. That is what we got here. So to start off our stream, as we always do, we're going to have a reading of a poem from our Poet of the Week, and then I'm going to be able to announce our next Poet of the Week. So let me bring down our Akira the Dawn music as we move over to the internet realm. Control 4. That should work. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, hopefully you guys are seeing this. Let me make sure that is working. It doesn't seem to be working on my end, but I will double check on the phone, which is always the best indicator. There we go. It's giving me an ad on my own phone. It's crazy. So we are going to read a poem by Alexandra Andino Allegria entitled Anymore. As well as the leaves of the trees in autumn are falling, so our love falls too. And soon we will stop being the tree that one day we were to be, just a tree full of pointed branches. Only the memories of what we were will remain. I don't think we'll make it to spring to bloom again. Roots have not been satisfied. We cannot give them water. We are sick. I'm already falling. Soon we will not be anymore. Nevermore. Anymore. I like the image of the pointed branches, kind of showing where the paths were lain. And I think that there is an interesting point of the cyclic of love, and the fear of the winter that is present in this poem. Very good work by Alexandra. And we are back. I don't know why my my keyboard shortcuts did or didn't work yesterday. let me introduce our next poet. I'm going to bring him up on Instagram, which I'm able to do. So, next week, we are going to be featuring the wonderful, wild, and witty work of a poet who goes aptly by the name of the Poet Fox. This guy is hilarious. That's just how I'm going to start this out. He is he literally dresses up in a fox suit. Let's see if we can get a picture of him right there. And he does poems in a fox suit, kind of like me with the typewriter. His poetry really drops you in the middle of situations in a way that I just absolutely love. Has a lot of creative, like, musings that just, you don't tend to have like the typical introduction, middle, and conclusion of it. But he has such a he has a creative flair to just being able to jump right in and not always be positive in a good way. Like, has a real feel to him when he does his writing. So this is the Poetry Fox, and we will be the featured poet for next week. So, what I am going to get working on is I am going to be working a little bit on edits here, but if we have anybody here that had a request or wanted to, kind of put in the chat how everything's going or anything like that, really, if I had to say if there was a theme or a word to inspire conversation today, our conversation inspiring word, I would say it would be weekend. 2 words, actually. Weekend. Because with everything that has happened the way it has happened, with what I would call for myself a lapse into getting caught up in the world, it is relieving to know that the cycle continues in a way. The week's end. The week's end. I like that. So yeah, I am just glad to have reached that point. And indeed, the week's end. That's actually a funny play on words, because weekend is it's an interesting word. Like the original word weekend as a whole, because you have weekend. It's like the end of the week. You have these 2 days, which are still part of the week. You have the week's end. You have the end of the week where it's the terminus, and then the beginning of a week as well, to same packed in there. It's an interesting time. Believe it or not, I run my weeks Mondays to Sundays when I, do analysis and other things like that. Like, I don't go by the typical schedule. It just works better that way. Week's end. I think that will be I will start out with a poem on that. And let's get some of our music back in here. I was cutting paper just before, my handy dandy paper cutter, before the stream started, because believe it or not, I am way out on the paper. Thank you very much, Twitch Hero Alex. Really appreciate it. I thought I should mention at some point that I really enjoy your streams. It's calming and enjoyable. Even just sitting here and listening to you chat about stuff. I very much enjoy your streams. Thank you again. I wish that we could. I mean, I guess it's one of those things that conversation is so critical. And I do have to get onto those just chatting streams or elsewhere on Twitch to figure out how they take that. I don't want to call it talent. I mean, I'll call it talent for them. I'm not going to claim to have it, but the presence of mind that allows for a good, calming chatting stream and really makes into something that can be for the larger community. I am just glad that I get to be there for you for that, and for anybody else that might be tuning in. Let's get to writing. There we go. A little better camera angle. Uh-oh. Ribbon issue. Ribbon issue. Gotta fix that ribbon. Coffee is the best. I don't drink it. I can only drink it 2 or 3 times a week, but that's what makes it so effective for me. It gives me energy when I do that. Like, it really kicks me in the butt, and then I go on that day. So I wait for moments when I really need that extra kick. I mean, I could probably do it every day and still get a good feel for it, but new thing I've been recently doing is I've been going back and adding words on lines that are pretty high up from where I was previously. Oh, goodness. I've been on 3 cups of coffee a day for at least a year. Definitely wish I could cut back to a regimen like you have. Yeah, like, I know it's when I drink a cup, it's powerful. And I love it. And I'm like, oh, I should go get another. It's like, but like, I know that, like, if I did, eventually I would just have to keep plugging myself with more caffeine to be able to get that kick. So, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine if you were on it going back, that would just be horrible. But for me, I never drunk coffee, and I made do. But then I realized after a while that there were some moments that I was just I was having trouble concentrating while working at home, or even working alone. It took a lot. Like, it was the transition for me to showing up to a job, to me not having to show up to a job. Like, I was not. I had the mentality to do that when I was like a kid, even. I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I knew if you had handed me a pile of money when I was a kid, I probably could have made a business out of it. But the one thing that, and I don't want to say that it's bragging, it's more that I was a very self-determined young adult, and teenager. But one thing I didn't have was discipline. I was a mess. I couldn't work on my own. You know, even like the tasks that were assigned to me at home, like homeworks and stuff like that. Once I learned how to work on my own, then I was better, and then I was able to do something like start my own business and show up most days in the morning. But that was a lot of, like, mistakes, a lot of little things like coffee help with that. Um, like when I'm feeling slow, and it's like, well, I've been motivating myself every day for the past 3 weeks. Maybe I'd like to get a little bit of substance in my system to be able to help me with that. But yeah, yeah, I so my story there with that, I mean, it was just like, I really hadn't I didn't develop self-discipline until probably about a year ago. And even that, oh, was it a year ago? Oh, no, it was about half a year ago. It was right before the pandemic that self-discipline started really kicking into gear with me. It was always um I always wanted self-discipline, and I existed in, for what I would how I would phrase it is, I existed in this weird hell where I was always wanting to do the things that I wanted to do, but never actually doing those things. It was that existed on both a pretty superficial level, like I just couldn't get my routines done, couldn't have a steady wake up in the morning. I'm 27 and a half, mind you, for my age. Um, and then there were also some deeper things, some deeper core habits, behaviors that I just hadn't let go from when I was younger, that I did finally let go. And so in January and February, through a bit of a trial by fire too, I let go of some of those tougher habits, and I became a better person. And that's when the self discipline started really kicking for me. And it was in part inspired by the fact that I had found what I wanted to do. I didn't really have an ambition until I discovered the typewriter poetry busking thing. That was not last February, but the February before. That was February 2019. So about a year, February 2019 to February 20, was the first year in my life that I really I mean, like, I might be contradicting myself here, but like, that was the first year of my life in which I really found my calling in terms of career. I had always wanted to known I'd want to get married, so I was already married, and I that has been absolutely wonderful to be married. So I always knew that type of thing. But when it came to my career, yeah, you found yourself. Thank you. Um, Good morning, Spencer of Grove. Uh, Satya, becoming by removing. Indeed. And there were some pretty big removals that had to happen. Good morning, poetry crew. I love that. So I so in February 2019, I really found my passion. And then there was the process of removal of the things that were obstructing me from really diving into that deeper. Some of it was from my own um, discipline and my own, hey, you got to clean up your act here. What is the song that Jordan Peterson is in, where where like more than it's you don't know how possible you can be. Dang it, I'm forgetting the title, but it's the one that was the where he says that you're actively wasting, you're way more powerful, that you're actively wasting X amount of time every day and you're wasting X amount of dollars and you're doing that right now. Like, that was me. Sometimes that's still me, but it's way less now. Like, I figured out how to hack that matrix so that I'm wasting less time all the time, and more of the time I'm spending is doing what I love, because what I was spending time doing was not what I loved. Um, and slowly those lined up and clicked. And so it became that what relaxed me, what made me joyful, was also what was my work and what was my building of the world. There's a lot of building of the world in this poem, The Week's End, that I'm still haven't finished, which is fine. Um, so that was where that all kind of lined up by January and February of 2020. And that was how I found my discipline, I guess. Um, there was a lead into all this that I'm forgetting. Yeah, if you set something right each day, then I don't even consider it like a straight up line, like a gradual line. It's a lot of this still. Like, you have, like, I would say that this past week was a dip. I had not really dipped, I had not really gone that deep into the news. And I made a choice based on a choice I'd made 4 years ago, which didn't work out too badly, to get really into the analytics of like election night. Um, I wasn't really invested in a candidate. I just like the numbers. I like the game of watching the percentages, seeing come in, being able to see the expectations of people on both sides. It's a bit of an American contest, but just like sometimes watching a too passionate football game, things go wrong. So this week, really, I couldn't snap out of that. And as a result, a lot of my routines and habits kind of fell, but then you pick yourself up and you keep moving forward. And what's so interesting, too, is that the most recent album by Akira, which is actually not a recent album, it's a remake of an old album, which is the How to Be a Better Person, Alan Watts album, challenges so much of my own understanding of how to build virtue. And what I obviously, whenever I reach something in a Meeting Wave universe that makes me go, I don't reject it. I incorporate the good, and I analyze it and understand it. And so it's so interesting to me, because part of what was happening before this past February was I was in my own way. I was working so hard at trying to be a better person and so passionate about it that basically I was getting OCD about it, and I would stumble and I would trip myself up all the time. So that was really what happened. And then when I found my writing passion, which I had been writing before, but when it all clicked and I saw what the future could be, then I suddenly got out of my way, because then I just had to do it. I had to go out every weekend and bus because I literally had something inside of me saying, you got to go do this. And at that point, I guess I became a little less neurotic about some of those things. But this all started with how I really knew when I was younger what I wanted to be. Not what I wanted to be, but that I wanted to be successful. Like, I wish that I had been a child prodigy, was the way that I phrased it to myself. And I'm not, and I know I consider myself an adult prodigy, but like, I wanted to be, I knew I was smart when I was younger, and I wanted to take advantage of that. But what I couldn't get past was a lack of discipline that just had to come with age. Yeah, I am 27 and a half. So I wonder where that puts me on your map. We're still children, dude. We're still child prodigies. What a perspective. You know, I feel like every once in a while, you know, like the Batman meme where he slaps Robin across the face. I feel like that there's this like recurring pattern in my life where I go, oh my goodness, I feel like exactly. You just quoted him. You quoted Gary Vee. That was what I was going for. Is like I get like, oh my goodness, like what did I do with my young years of my life? Da 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 da. And then like it's like Gary Vee Batman slapping me across the face and saying, you're gonna be 55 and a baby when your child goes to college, and you're gonna be able to go all in. Yep, perspective. It's all a matter of perspective. 100%. I love that. That's so good. Yeah, man, it was good to talk about that, and good to hear, and good to get that feedback too. The Gary Vee reminder, the Gary Vee slap, I'm gonna call it. Maybe I could send something to his marketing team, because it would be cool if they did a little skit like that where he just walked around and like, uh, went around to people and was just like, no, you're not old. Nope, the inventor of Grey Goose did it at 80 years old and you're 40. Shut up. I feel like that would make for a pretty funny skit. I'm actually gonna write that down, because he just has what he's done at VaynerMedia, from what I've heard, is that he's literally just assembled a team of creators to just keep pushing out content all the time. And I think that would be just really funny as a skit. He does funny stuff too. Like they'll occasionally, like, a lot of it's just pulled from his talks, but sometimes they'll do something this is a little off the wall. I really appreciate you guys listening and welcoming my opening. It is honestly good to process through all that. Let me get back to this poem and get this poem done. How is your morning and week, Spencer of Grove? This all started from the topic of the day, which, you know what, I've decided I'm going to be doing a topic of the day. It's going to be picked on the day. It's not going to be planned. But the topic of the day was week's end. The week's end, week's end, as opposed to just weekend, because of the severity of the week that we had. So, any thoughts on week's end? Feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll be reading this poem soon. If you're just tuning in, we're going to be reading a poem about week's end. The week's end. Sitting in a Saturday spree of time and tea, we reflect on how our hands blistered to build a world in 5 days, rattled the cage of confusion to construct pylons of progress. And were my meetings and scannings and stockings stuffed with sentiment? Was I filling the void for the coin collapse of soul? I need space to listen to the morning dove coo the answer with the sunrise. Thumb the prayer beads, look into the eyes of wives and see my reality. For we are living, floating on Earth through 7-day orbits. An organism transmits the millions of cells, I but one, to connect, take the pause, to hear the mind hum, and the spirit shine off my stretching skyscraper. That poem felt a little dense for me, so I'm going to read it one more time, a little slower. The week's end. Sitting in a Saturday spree of time and tea, we reflect on how our hands blistered to build a world in 5 days, rattled the cage of confusion to construct pylons of progress. And were my meetings and scannings and stockings stuffed with sentiment? Was I filling the void for the coin collapse of soul? I need space to listen to the morning dove coo the answer with the sunrise. Thumb the prayer beads, look into the eyes of wives and see my reality. For we are living, floating on Earth through 7-day orbits. An organism transmits the million of cells, I but one, to connect. Take the pause and hear the mind hum, and the spirit shine off my stretching skyscraper. That is The Week's End, composed on the stream. Reflecting on that, it's a point of view. I of course, obviously, there's strength and power in working through the weekend and working through the week, and there's people that work only, that mainly work on the weekend, so give them props. But at least, even if your weekend is airing during the week, then you get, then you still have like a weekend. Like, it's just how, point of view, whatever you look at it. Thank you, Twitch here, Alex. Spencer Gross says, yeah, I like the prayer beads part. Well, I'll tell you, I had a friend, a really interesting experience happened to me. So I had a friend, a good friend of mine, but we don't keep in touch that much anymore because we both moved on to different things. And I messaged him, and I asked him how he was doing with the whole election thing. And he said that he had prayed a rosary for the first time in years. He and I are both Catholic. I still practice the faith personally, but he doesn't practice it that much anymore, and that really struck me. And so because even though I consider myself a practicing, I don't do prayer beads that much. So yesterday, while I was sitting on the street busking for poems, and I had a little bit of a low moment, I broke out my prayer beads for the first time in a long time, and it was very helpful to drift into that prayer. Yeah, so that was how that part came about in that poem. Is quite literally, I said, all right, you know what? Enough of me trying to be the one to be able to solve everything. Let me just drift into the metaphysic, and let let God kind of be present in that moment. What I love, one of the things I love most about the meaning wave universe is how the your idea of heaven, or the concept of God, wishes, those songs, really really clicks in a unique way, because it brings together um, a philosophic understanding, and it marries it to the theological. Spencer of Grove says, I went to Italy and purchased a set in the first church we came to. I wore it for 5 weeks to all the churches and museums and gifted it to a spiritual friend of mine when I returned. That's beautiful. That's wonderful. Yeah, I should bring my prayer beads on, and I used to pray them a lot more. The rosary that I have, it is I literally tried to design the most badass rosary I could. I can actually make them on my own. I've done it. So if you ever need a set of beads, prayer beads, I can do chained prayer beads, and it's hematite, I think is the name of the metal. Hematite beads. The thing weighs a ton, and that's what I love about it. It's like like it's not just like a bunch of beads. You pick it up and you go, whoa! It's really cool. I'll bring it on the stream sometime next time you're on here, Spencer of Grove. Prayer beads. Didn't know we were gonna talk about prayer beads today. And then I didn't get to really read your comment from before. A rough week with more work than usual. You've been a little moody and just asked for patience from those around me. Trying to make sure whatever task I'm attacking, I'm fully engaged. More awakening from the meaning crisis lectures and NaNoWriMo. So some noveling. That's exciting. And I do need to get into the meaning crisis lectures. I've heard they're pretty awesome. And focusing in on the task. What my English teacher from freshman year of high school, God bless him, had something taped to his desk, and he said it was a mantra, and he taught a lesson to us, and it was fantastic. And what it said was, do what you were doing. which when you hear it, the first time you hear it, go, do what you were doing, it sounds like the most nonsensical thing in the world. But what it is it's about being present to the actions that you are actually prescribing to, because wildly enough, we are not present to our actions most of the time. And that's just because that's how the mind goes. It settles into those routines. Its whole purpose is for survival. So it's about trying to just make sure it gets us to the next time that we can eat and reproduce. So, like, I was with my wife. We were playing backgammon. We were having a good time on the deck, just playing backgammon. And like, I had to mentally click myself and be like, you're in this moment, settle in this moment, be in this moment with your spouse, and things like that, and doing that. And then, so that's on the relaxing side. Need to watch Awakening. Parallels, man. Is that one of the lectures, the meaning crisis lectures, or is that different, movie, film, or something like that? Got it. Well, I do have a Awakening from the Meaning Crisis. And my suspicion, which I gotta obviously watch those and then kind of really settle into it. But my suspicion is one of the things I'm going to have an effect of, and it's because of the effect I'm kind of feeling now with everything going on, is I'm going to probably feel a little bit of heartbreak, because it's hard when you find out, for lack of a better word, the secret, the underlying thing, the thing that we're not supposed to know, according to Alan Watts. And then you look at the world and you go, dang, so many people are just, they're just running through it. But I mean, I hope that what my poetry is doing for people and maybe it would be good to watch it for this reason, is when I write for strangers on the street, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take the mundane and make it into meaningful. They see the light that they don't see happening in front of them. Great discussion today. I guess it's just a lot of stuff needed to pour out. Awakening from the Meaning Crisis. I'll bump that up onto my my list. So yeah, this is pretty good. I'm thinking that I'm gonna stream this morning and then raid into Akira's stream. Yeah, I'm gonna keep this going just a little longer. I, you know, hopefully the what's his name will not be so what do you call it? Hopefully he'll be more on time, but even if he's not, that's perfectly fine as well. Dang, this has been really good conversation. And I think it'll be good for me to go a little bit into the editing that I was going to be doing today. So, I'm going to move over, and we're going to switch over to our still semi not working editing camera. It's typewriter camera, editing camera. Problem with this editing camera is the resolution is not good enough on it, at least from what I can see. I mean, I might not actually be able to tell. I'm gonna bring up my Twitch TV Walking More Poet. I'm probably going to turn off ads. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, that's what I thought. It's fuzzy. And what actually might work is if I switch the two cameras around, because I can do that. Well, because then I might have issues with that camera on this side. I don't know. That'll be for the next stream. Yeah, the camera resolution seems okay, but it's out of focus. Well, this is what happens when you have like a $30 camera. That's really what it is. It's really inexpensive camera that my wife happened not have to use. It made her face look really good when she was doing just face stuff, like when she was zooming with her kids before they gave her cameras. But no, this is yeah. Well, we will abandon that enterprise then, but I will do it from the laptop camera. I'll just be working on editing here. What this is right here, this big pile of papers, is this is my most recent editing letter from my writing mentor. What's been really exciting is the process that he's been helping me understand my own writing process. He's been helping me understand how to process my own poetry, re-examine it from different perspectives. It really has taken my work and gone from, hey, this is a really nice thing, I like this, to, wow, look at all the facets, you can see it, you know. The difference between someone saying, oh, that's a nice house, to someone saying, wow, look at the type of architecture, look at the type of wiring and plumbing, and look at how you can hang stuff on the walls in this way, and what if we knock down this divider, but we keep this retaining wall, and you know, cool stuff to be able to get into the to my editing and the editing process. Let's see here. He suggests some poems for reading for before I go and I edit some of these poems that I'm working on. He suggests a few poems that focus on memories existing within a changed world of sorts, or some similar tones. He wants me, so I have my poem, What I Will Remember, which is basically a list poem. It's supposed to be about the pandemic. It's trying to encapsulate the pandemic and figure out how to create memory of the pandemic without in a list format, like so that it's what I will remember from the pandemic, but in a way that provides obviously meaning and poetic insight more than just, you know, the typical. And I seem to have lost the most recent version that I had of this poem. Goodness me, where did it go? That's part of the problem with being a poet, typewriter poet. Paper everywhere. And all that paper is always a mess. Well, I could reprint the scan, which I'm going to do right now. Ah, there we go. That's good. That's good. The great thing about having scanned it. Reprint. All right. Because I've already done an edit. Like after he had sent this letter, I'd already done an edit on the poem. So we will see if what he says in his letter matches up. But for what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up these poems that he mentions, which are In Flanders Field by John McCrae. We'll start with that one. There's another second one. Flanders Fields by John McCrae. And I think that In Flanders Fields is a really good poem because it's very it's about trauma. Oh, this is beautiful. In Flanders Fields. What about this one? It's a little dark. Dolce et decorum est. Oh, that one is even crazier. World War One is so World War One is interesting because there were a lot of poets that were shocked by what they were seeing in World War One, and as a result, they were so inclined to write poetry about it, poetry through it, stories through it. A lot of stories came out of that time. But what was really more interesting about it is that they kind of thought of it as its event. Like they were like, all right, this is World War One, I should say. That was the Freudian slip. World War One, the Great War. It happens. And then they figure, well, we finally got that out of our system, didn't we? And then World War II happens. And there's not as much poetry about World War II because I think it was more machinations is the word that's coming to mind. Like, it's a different than World War One because World War One definitely felt like this, like the world. It was straddling a world of where there's honor and glory and the bloodshed, which whether you agree or disagree with that or not, that was the perspective. So there's that feeling, but also then the machine world, the increase in technology, and so poets could kind of encapsulate that. Like they were still going from a frame of reference from the previous wars and war situations where war was more an artistic endeavor and all that BS. But then World War II happens, and I find that there's not as much poetry. There is poetry about World War II. There's poetry about every war, but there's not as much this of well-regarded like era poetry about World War II because it was all machinations. It was like just, for lack of a better word, horror. Heroic horror in some ways. I mean, they defeated the Nazis, but horror nevertheless. To that, we bring our thoughts to In Flanders Fields. And I'm reading this with the thought, that's not what I wanted to do. That's the wrong poem. There we go. We bring this to our thoughts in the sense of how can we make, for me, how can I make a good memorial of the time period that we're in a way that also echoes through the ages, like this. So this is In Flanders Fields. In Flanders Fields the poppies blow beneath the crosses, row on row that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw a sunset glow. Loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. In Flanders fields. Yeah. So elements of that poem. Twitcher Alex says, for the longest time, In Flanders Fields was the only poem I ever knew. I think my first reaction to that is sadness. I mean, it's a beautiful poem, but that is, if that is your understanding of poetry, then that is there's so much more to the poetic spectrum. But indeed, it is a good poem because it recounts lesson. Like there's such lesson in it. Like if I'm not gonna bring it back up on the screen, but if I go back to it, in Flanders fields, take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep. Like that's pretty like you better get this right, guys. Like that's if you had a dead man come up to you and kind of warn you, like Marley does to Scrooge, where it's you better get this right, man, otherwise look where we ended up. So let me get my poem off the printer, reflect on how memory is used in both poems. I'll be right back. I need a "We'll be right back" screen. The reprinted scan of a typewritten poem. So I'm going to read this through, and then I'm going to think about In Flanders Fields. He's still working away with the poem audience you want to speak to. What? Reading the poem. I'm just reading some notes from my friend. We recently did a lesson on mood and tone in poems, which I find really interesting. Mood is what is the poem's emotion? It's a hard thing for me to process. Identify words or images that contribute to particular emotions, feelings. Because I think my feelings are all over the place. So, what I will remember. This is actually version 3. The news, the press conferences and closings, the singing from the Italian balconies above whispers terrible about the dying inevitable. Shock and awe as we ran to the grocery store. Assembled belongings in weeks that echoed like decades. Seeing my family through Zoom on my birthday. Stitching together masks with the world watching. Seeing people differently as we waited, read, watched, hoped. I clung to the Angelus wrote searching for substance, cowered under sheets in anxious listlessness, and cried in the grocery store, cried in the Zoom calls and the meaningful live streams in the churches and parking lots, tuned into the music and repeated the mantras, vowed to love myself and the world, and walked outside in May to the spring flowers ready for the summer to shine. The lady writes, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for the bits. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. I am doing some editing. We're going to be probably wrapping up soon, because I will be going to, we'll be moving over to the DJ set I usually go to. But it is so good to see you here, and thank you so much for the cheer. We just finished reading In Flanders Fields, a poem about World War I. And I have a memory poem about the pandemic that I'm trying to still sculpt and trying to find the right mood and tone for. And so the mood here, if I had to go from it, is very conflicting. Shock and awe. This line doesn't fit. I guess I can still try to use the editing cam here, even though you guys are not going to be able to really read because the resolution's too low. Ah. Editing camera. So this doesn't fit. At this point, the poem kind of loses a little bit. This here is powerful. I think that when it comes to mood, I'm getting a lot of anxiety here, which is normal. I mean, this is a poem about the pandemic. But that's not the full thing that I want to give off. And like, it starts here, turning into hope. But also, hope is, for me, well, oh wow, the lady writes says it's been ages since I've done hand editing. I can only hand edit. And I can only edit poetry right now because poetry is the only thing I've been really writing. I gotta, still haven't done prose yet in a long time. You can see there, hope here. But what hand editing is for me is really just me sketching around the poem, and like I circle words and like I don't explain what they mean, but I kind of know what they mean, and notes running around the pages. This here, believe it or not, I wrote this poem like this, and then I realized I was missing something, so I had this stanza just kind of sidelined on it. And Ogden Nash has nothing to do with this poem. He's just I read another poem, a funny poem on the stream, and then I had to write his name down somewhere. So the themes, if anything, are anxiety and hope. And while those are two very apt themes for the pandemic, they are not the themes I want to be. Not themes. Themes is not the right word. Tones. Even though those are two good tones for the pandemic, those are not the tones I want to echo in the poem. If I had to pick a tone out of thin air, or tones, it would be meaning, but meaning is not a tone. Meaning is too deep of a word. I need to find the emotions that surround meaning, and that's a really good question. It's actually a really great question for the Maztecs in the building. We have a other community lady writes, which I'm part of, which does a lot of meaning and stuff like that. If you guys are still in the building, Spencer Grove, what is like the emotion of meaning wave? Which is a really weird question because meaning wave by definition is very stoic. It's extremely stoic. And I don't want to say stoic because like it's a little bit of a cross between stoic. So we're talking about emotion here. Like what is the emotion of a poem, which is a new concept to me, believe it or not. I just would write poems and I'd be like, oh wow, that's emotional. But starting to sculpt and manipulate the emotion of the poem can really help you give off what you want to give off to your readers. I want people to feel the feeling of the eye in the storm. That there is a storm. Controlled excitement. Focused endeavor. I like that. Controlled excitement. Now, that wouldn't work for a pandemic poem. You can't be controlled excited about a pandemic. But you're onto something with it, where it's kind of there's a reservation. But the focused endeavor is probably more apt of a phrase. Like, even if we go back, no, that's perfectly fine. No, that's totally okay. That was what I was asking. Is because my connection to the pandemic, these things I want to reflect some anxiety. I want to get in touch with that universal anxiety, but I want to show people a window into seeing the anxiety. There's so much here. Seeing the anxiety, seeing even the trauma through the lens of perseverance, while not leaning too heavy on either of those sides. Because really, like, when you start getting to, so like up to here, which is the line I underlined was assembled belongings in weeks that echoed like decades, which is this line right here. This is all anxiety. Then this is really good to open and hit with the poem is you have stress, there's this pandemic happening. But then I start writing about things like seeing my family through Zoom on my birthday, stitching together masks with the world watching. And what I want to say there, and I drift into hope, and hope's good, but hope's not what I want to say here, is I want to say more that perseverance. Like, all right, like you got punched in the face, and then you turned around and you just kept walking in a way that gives homage and respect and love to everybody that's feeling all those other feelings. So it's almost like there's an embrace to it. It's the feeling, to borrow from something from one of the Meeting Wave songs, it's the feeling of being the strongest person at your father's funeral, which my father is luckily still with me, and that's obviously a hard feeling. Like an embrace of the suffering. Now, see, now we're starting to get to kind of something. And I really am, and it's funny because we're talking about all this, but I'm married to the stanza about crying in the Zoom calls and the meaningful live streams in the churches and parking lots, because that's true. It's almost like I'm trying to do so many things at once with this. Trying to be able to reflect on the truth of that struggle, the truth of that pain, with the perseverance of it at the same time. Where I feel like we're slowly starting to get towards that target. A call and response. Possible to split to 2 poems, or to 2 stanzas at the very least, which was what this was starting to tend to. So the crying would probably go up with the anxiety. And then this would, because originally the way that it started out was that this was a poem that would go from, oh no, bless ATD. Oh no! Akir had a power outage that'll keep him offline until at least 10:15. Oh my goodness, that is terrible. Oh no. Thank you for the announcement, Twitch Hero Alex. Really appreciate that you have announced it. That is, oh goodness, we will have to sound the, we will have to sound the alarm and everything. Well, I'll be able to listen to him then. Oh goodness, 10:15 CT. Oh goodness, when is that 11:15 ET? Oh goodness. I will already be doing my my thing during the day today. I have I'm going to I'm going 3 hours from now. Yeah, no, at that point, I will already be writing poems for people attending a grilled cheese festival. It's funny. We have a grilled cheese festival down in Staunton, which is a city about 30 miles south of me. That it's a grilled cheese and tomato soup festival. These small towns, they get super creative with what they do. I love it. I love grilled cheese actually, but I will unfortunately not be able to attend live on the stream because of that. But I will maybe I'll like have it like playing in the background, and just have it listening as I'm busking poems. Goodness gracious, that is such a shame. Well, we will hopefully see. We will hope and pray for the lights to be on soon for ATD. Anyway, I think this is all really good analysis for this poem, and I think I need to kind of take some of this and reflect quietly on it. But I appreciate the assistance, especially Spencer Grove, for the list the bad, then the prescription. Because as I was kind of saying before we got our announcement, I can raid someone else, like another writer, or Disco if he's live. Disco might be live. But that lists the bad, then the prescription, I think is a new perspective on the poem I didn't have before. That being able to, because I knew I was drifting towards 2 stanzas, and now I know how those 2 stanzas need to function. Originally, it was going to be a poem that went from the world to me, and then to other people, like taking these abstract ideas, these abstract anxieties, and making it personal. Could still do that. The world are the anxieties, and I still have emotional connection to that world, which is why I still cry to it. But then the response, the determination, the actions. Because think about all these things. Most of these things are not actions that we take. I would say that running to the grocery store was a thing that happened to me. Like, that's the weird thing about it, is when we all had to do our bum rushes to the grocery store to make sure we had toilet paper. I actually had enough toilet paper, but I didn't have enough meat. I was scared of a meat shortage. No, I'm not going to be streaming 3 hours from now. No, I'm going to probably raid someone else in the meantime, but if you wanted to hang out, you can, or regardless. I'm not that determined with the poetry this morning. This morning, I have to put a typewriter in a refrigerator. No joke. That's something which I'm excited to talk about on my Instagram. I have to put a typewriter in a refrigerator to simulate cold weather atmosphere, to make sure that my stupid typewriter actually, that there's not like a manufacturer's defect in my typewriter. So, no, I will not be streaming for 3 hours today. I have other things I got to work on. But being able to talk, but like being able to take in the first paragraph things that happen to us, and then the second stanza, things I did to be focused endeavor. I think that's a good, thank you. Lady writes, redeemed, hydrate. I think that's a good contrast for this poem. So more on that in the future. In the meantime, let me just see if there's anybody I know that's currently live. Writer Greg might be live. Writer Greg is always live. Yeah. We might pop into Writer Greg as he is doing his stuff. Well, anyway, if you want to be part of the raid, you can. If not, no worries. Thank you all so much for being here. Lady Writes, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate the bits and the support. Spencer Grove and Twitcher Alex, thank you for always being the cool Maztecs in the building, and really appreciate you guys being part of my my sharing, my opening up about what's, just growing as a person in greater discipline and joy. So I like this actually, taking the laptop and moving it into center stage when the stream ends. So you get the full-on view of me. Hello. I wish I had like a battle station like a gear. It'd be pretty cool. No, it's fine. Don't worry about being distracted. Frankly, I'm distracted all the time when I'm on Twitch because I'm always trying to do other things too. But I think that is, we should never have an expectation. I didn't even know that music's been playing the whole time. What's playing? Goodness gracious. That's good that I've had music playing, I guess. That I was in the middle of trying to like answer a message while sending an email, while doing a phone call yesterday, or like it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before. There should be no expectation that everybody's all super focused in on what they're doing. Just because we're all busy. We're all building the world. Where is it? Cue poem. Where did that poem go? The one I just wrote. We are building a world together in our 5 days, in our 7 days, in our 100 days. So, thank you again so much. Writer Greg. I'm setting up my raid to Writer Greg. If you have, again, so my closing remarks, thank you everybody for tuning in. If you are so interested, right here is my Instagram. It's where I post most of my stuff, all my poems, everything like that. It's probably the best place to follow me if you are interested in learning more about what I do. And then if you are interested in getting any of the poems, handwritten, hand-typed, mailed to you, my email is yourfriend@walkingmallpoet.com. And that will also be on my Instagram and other places. So you can feel free to just message me or whisper me in Twitch if you'd like to get anything that I was writing today sent to you. Otherwise, thank you all so much for being here. Really appreciate the support. And I do this Monday to Saturday, 7 a.m. EST, except when I am not awake and or in the middle of doing other things. But 90% of the time I'm here. So tomorrow is off. And then Monday we'll be back, and Monday we will be featuring our new poet every day on that week, the Poetry Fox. So we'll be excited to feature his work and celebrate the amazing stuff he's doing. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful raid. And I forgot that it takes about 10 seconds if people want to jump in. Have a wonderful day, everybody. We'll see you all over at Writer Greg. And we're out.